Hello and welcome to the Justified City Primeval overview and review. For the next several weeks, I'll be looking at the Justified City Primeval TV show on FX and Hulu and going over the episodes a bit, as well as kind of delving into the deeper lore of not only the novel, but the Elmore Leonard world as a whole. So I hope you enjoy this and will join me on this hopefully deep dive into the world that Elmore Leonard created as we celebrate the return of Justified after an 8-year absence, as well as the continuation of what many would argue is the best adaptation of the Dickens of Detroit's work. So it's been 8 years, and Justified, after 6 seasons on FX, rode off into the sunset. And now, with most of the same creative team coming back 8 years later, we get a sequel of sorts, Justified City Primeval. And what's interesting about City Primeval, which was a novel that Elmore Leonard published in 1980, my old-fashioned paperback copy here. But what's interesting about the book is Raylan Givens does not appear. Raylan Givens did not exist for another 13 years. He didn't make his debut until Pronto, which was published in 1993. And he wasn't even the lead in that book. That was Harry Arno, a degenerate gambler who was on the run for the mob. And the book took place between Italy and Miami. And for those of you familiar with Elmore Leonard's work, the opening scene of the Justified TV series is pretty much a verbatim take on the final scene of Pronto with Tommy Bucks. So, and then Raylan Givens, of course, appeared 2 years later in Riding the Rap, where Raylan was the lead character throughout, as opposed to sort of being the main secondary character in Pronto. And then several years later, he appeared for a third time in a short novella called Fire in the Hole, which was published in a series of novellas and short stories, which was at the time called When the Women Come Out to Dance. And it was a collection of short stories and novellas featuring a few other recurring characters, such as Karen Sisko, in the collection. But Fire in the Hole was definitely the standout, and of course was the basis of the Justified pilot. Raylan Givens comes home to Harlan, Kentucky, to go after Boyd Crowder, who is leading a white supremacist movement. And from there on we go. And so City Primeval starred another character called Raymond Cruz, a Detroit homicide detective. But much of the events in the book are very akin to a Western where Raylan would have fit right in. And so there was actually talk, I know, of maybe just doing a straight adaptation of City Primeval with Raymond Cruz as the lead, but you don't go against the winning horse here, so they decided, I think correctly, to continue Raylan's story. So after 8 years, here we are, with Raylan in the lead and Raymond Cruz thus far having been relegated to a one-scene cameo in the second episode, The Oklahoma Wild Man. So, and, as far as Justified is concerned, I'm a huge Elmore Leonard fan. I've read, I think, all of his books, and Justified, for me, was a tremendous achievement because so many other Elmore Leonard adaptations over the years have failed because they either took themselves too seriously or they missed the point of the book itself and tried to fix really what wasn't broken in the first place. And a vast majority of those adaptations have failed as a result because they didn't get the work. And really, the only movie adaptations that got it correct for me were both versions of 310 to Yuma, Ombre with Paul Newman in the 1960s, and then the triumvirate in the 1990s of Get Shorty, Jackie Brown, and Out of Sight. And those are three pretty different books from one another in a lot of ways. Get Shorty, Rum Punch, which became Jackie Brown, and Out of Sight. They're three very different books, but all three filmmakers, Barry Sonnenfeld, Quentin Tarantino, and Steven Soderbergh, got the tone right and were able to get a good handle on what makes Elmore Leonard work. And Justified certainly emulated that spirit very well and was able to sustain that tone and that approach over 6 seasons by and large. And credit to the creator of the series, Graham Yost, for putting together that terrific creative team and for really making sure that they stay true to Elmore Leonard's spirit. They all wore bracelets with "What Would Elmore Do?" or WWED. And that's a great way of going about it. And you could tell they were having a lot of fun being in Elmore Leonard's world and really doing a terrific job of mastering that tone and that style to the point where Elmore Leonard was, I know, incredibly appreciative of the work that they had done. And it's a shame he did not get to see it through to the end of the series because he passed away in 2013 between the 4th and 5th seasons. So, but when I heard that they were going to bring City Primeval and Justified onto FX and Hulu, I was excited, of course, because more Justified, more Timothy Oliphant, getting to be back in that world. Although I have to admit, I was also a little concerned because the series ended so perfectly the first time around with that final scene between Raylan and Boyd at the end of season 6, and I was concerned that could they undo the ending here, or could they somehow cheapen it in some way? And I knew that was probably unlikely. These guys know Elmore Leonard; they revere Elmore Leonard. They're not gonna go out and take a shit all over the work. That's just not going to happen. But it's like putting it all on red after you've hit the jackpot. Like, do you really want to double down and go after it again, or why not leave well enough alone? I mean, it's not like we're in a situation like 24 or Dexter where you do another season really to kind of wash the stench away of what came before it, because both shows ended really pissing off a lot of their fans. I mean, I'm not as well versed in Dexter. I have other people who told me so about that show, but 24 I was certainly a big fan of, and I was very displeased with how that 8th season had ended, basically committing character assassination on Jack Bauer, and really just finishing on such a low note that when they came back a few years later to do Live Another Day, it, for me, reversed a lot of the problems I had with the 8th season and gave Jack Bauer the correct ending, I think. It's probably not the ending a lot of people anticipated, but it sure as hell was a lot better than what they gave him at the end of season 8, which was basically just throwing their hands up and saying, "Oh, to hell with it, just get him out of here." I think they'd run out of gas by that point, because the last 4 seasons of 24 were a mixed bag for me, and the 5th season was very good. The 6th was terrible. The 7th was good, not great. There were a couple of really great set pieces, and the 8th season just never really got off the ground and just cratered, particularly in the final 8 episodes. So Justified, I know the sixth season was a really strong finish overall. After the fifth season was kind of up and down, it's, I think, generally considered the weakest of the six seasons. So so it was nice to see. It was nice that 24 got its redemption arc, but with Justified, it isn't needed. So you're really taking a chance here, even though you are adapting, I think, one of Elmore Leonard's very best works in City Primeval. And what makes the book so good is, again, it's a Western basically set in Detroit, and it has the benefit of giving us one of the best villains, I think, in Elmore Leonard's canon, in Clement Mansell, the Oklahoma Wildman. So, that was the one great strength with Justified, is you had a terrific antagonist or counterpoint for Raylan Givens and Boyd Crowder. And yeah, there were other villains throughout the series. Some of them were very good, particularly Mags Bennett in season 2, but it was really down to Boyd being sort of the dark side to Raylan, and how in a lot of ways they aren't that different from one another. So it was nice that they picked a book where they had the advantage of having a terrific villain, and it was all simply a question of how do you execute this book? How do you get Raylan Givens up to Detroit out of Miami, where he normally spends his time? And I think that was the biggest challenge. And so the first 2 episodes of Justified City Primeval are off to a good start, and it's nice that nobody has really skipped a beat, least of all Timothy Oliphant, now joined in the story by his daughter Willa, played by Timothy Oliphant's real-life daughter, Vivian Oliphant. And what's interesting that I noticed throughout the show is how much they sound alike. And that's something, that comes with the benefit of having your daughter on the show. And she has the same sort of laid-back, laconic attitude that Raylan does, which is nice to see. And it's a little weird because she's playing about 14 or 15 and she's an adult, so that's a little weird, but it's something you can easily overlook. And they have good chemistry together, which you would certainly hope for and expect. And so that relationship, I think, will be very important throughout the show, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, particularly after the end of the second episode, which I'll get to in a minute. And then some of the other characters, particularly Clement Mansell, who's played by Boyd Holbrook, who's best known for his work in Logan, and most recently Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, where he played not the main villain, but sort of the main enforcer in both movies. And now he's up to the lead antagonist here, and he definitely plays that devil may care attitude, I think, throughout. He's crazy, he's reckless, he has no qualms about killing anybody to further his agenda, but though that agenda is unknown to everybody but him, and that includes his partners and his girlfriend Sandy. And but you can tell, even though he's crazy, there is some intelligence there, and Holbrook is having a lot of fun playing this unhinged villain, and he is definitely going to be a good adversary for Raylan, because in the first 2 episodes, he's already gotten under his skin by getting to his daughter and sort of unleashing that anger that Raylan has largely kept in check throughout the episode and the first 2 episodes. And it's kind of jarring in a way, because he's playing the doting dad, trying to do his job but also spend time with his daughter, and Clement is able to tap onto a raw nerve, and you see that dark side of Raylan, the part that he's never quite left behind, even after he's left Harlan after all these years. It's still there. And it'll be interesting to see how they, position these three characters throughout the show, and I hope they don't resort to like cheap, hostage situations and that kind of stuff. I mean, Justified's better than that, and they've done that. They've already done these kind of cheap hostage situations, but they were done, in some cases very well. But I think we can do better than that. The other characters who are worth noting so far, Carolyn Wilder, the attorney on the show, is played by Ingenue Ellis, and it's in the book she was white, not black, but that I think switching her race, much as they did with Jackie Brown in Tarantino's adaptation of Rum Punch, I think is a very good choice. It speaks to the shifting demographics of Detroit, Ellis does a really good job playing a woman who, has her own agenda. It's not always the right agenda, but she does believe in what she's doing, and as a lawyer, and it'll be interesting to see how her relationship, with Raylan evolves, as well as with, Clement, and also with the other major character worth mentioning, Sweetie, who, like Carolyn Wilder, is kind of playing a situation where, he knows he's kind of in over his head, and he knows, he's in a bind here, and I'm sure that bind is going to get, worse and worse for him as he goes along, and he's got to figure out how to get out of this. So, and Vondi Curtis Hall, who I remember as Ben Urich from Daredevil, does a really good job sort of playing this sort of reluctance. He's a reluctant criminal in a lot of ways, and trying to get by, but he doesn't make very good choices with his friends or associates, unfortunately. So the other character worth mentioning is the judge, Alvin Guy, played by Keith David. And in the book, he's certainly more bombastic in his brief appearances. He's softened up a little bit here by, I think, in large part by Keith David's performance. Like he plays a hard ass, but he's not completely heartless, and I think that speaks more to Keith David's just natural charisma. He always steals every scene he's in, and it's always fun to see him back. So overall, I'd give the first 2 episodes a B+. They do a good job getting Raylan out of Miami and into Detroit, and showing that while he's older and to a certain degree wiser, he still has a tendency to get himself into trouble. And now he's got a daughter to deal with who takes up his love for trouble in other ways, and is certainly going to be a handful. And I like how they're weaving all the story elements together, and I'll be interested to see where this goes from here in the next 6 episodes. I look forward to sharing these thoughts with you, as well as digging deeper into the world of Elmore Leonard and seeing where this revival goes from here and what the future holds for our favorite TV cowboys. I look forward to seeing you next week.